Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another fun episode of DevDive, a conversational podcast where we dive deep into the world of indie game development and uncover the stories behind the games we love. If you're new here, please smash that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to us on, be it YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. We don't care. We just want your support and your ears on this amazing podcast. Joining us this week on this awesome podcast is Daniel Klautsch, developer of Sacrifice for Sale, a spooky visual novel in which you try to convince cultists not to sacrifice you. Oh man, I'm not a visual novel guy, Daniel, but this just on the premise alone, I love this game. So, first off, thank you and welcome to DevDive. How you doing,
Absolutely.
buddy?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing quite all right. Um, you see, the good thing about our game is that it is a visual novel for people who aren't necessarily all that well acquainted with visual novels. So, if you're familiar with other narrative games like Telltale's Walking Dead or any similar heavily narratively driven game, then you might still find quite a lot of amusement within Sacrifice for Sale, which is available on Steam and itch.io.
Look at you. Indie game
Well, you
devs,
did
man,
such a
they gotta make the game, they gotta market the game, you gotta wear all these hats at one time, and it never turns off for the low price of
it's
seven
true. I
ninety
mean,
nine now on Steam.
I forgot about that. See?
You could have a cup of Starbucks coffee or an amazing little indie game that's full of laughs. And actually, it's actually got quite a bit of humor. So let's
Oh
get
yeah.
into the marketing sales, Daniel, right now. I have never heard of this game prior to Steven bringing this to my attention a few weeks ago. Steven is not feeling well, listener, so let's wish him a speedy recovery. His voice is out. He went to PAX Unplugged, and I guess saw too many board games, got super excited, and now he has no voice. So, Steven, buddy, get well soon because I love doing the show with you, and I need you in the driver's seat is what makes this show better. I'm like your second hand, but we'll see how this goes. Maybe it won't be a total train wreck, but I digress. So
You're
again,
coming.
this yeah, so let's hear all about this game. I gave a little general breakdown in the intro, but go into more detail. What's the setup? What's the premise? And then get into how and why this awesome idea came to be.
So, Sacrifice for Sale is a heavily choice-based game in which you play as a salesman who got kidnapped by terrible creatures and cultists who plan on sacrificing you to the elder deity. And the only ability to actually interact with them and be able to somehow escape this terrible situation is by using your bullshit salesman power and of talking to them to somehow convince them to not do that. It's very much a low fantasy, like a low power protagonist where you don't have a lot of options. All you can do is talk, so good luck. The game features more than 500 choices, more
Holy
than 15
shit.
different endings, 18 in total. Yes, so that's in fact a big selling point of this. Whenever we talk about the choices, it's really hard to really bring to people just how ridiculously many choices there are. Because a lot of games always come and say, we've got lots of choices, choices matter in our story, and that sort of thing. I found that the best way of actually getting people to understand just the scope we're working with is showing them like some of the technical pictures of what our conversation trees look like, because they are insanely large. Um, as I mentioned, we have more than 500 unique choices, and by that I mean that all of those choices have unique outcomes specific to that choice. So
Mhm.
it's not a situation of where you've got like three choices and two of them are going to lead you to the exact same outcome, not acknowledging the fact that you have made that choice. No, every single one makes a difference. Um, it is quite insane from that point of view. Um,
Yeah, I must say one of the things that I like about this game, because again, I'm not a big visual novel guy. I mean, the last one I really got into was Slay the Princess, which incredible game.
very.
Um, I really like your approach to the actual choices you make in this game. It's not there's a dialogue prompt and you have like six choices to funnel through. In this game, you have keywords in the sentence that are highlighted and you can hover over them to either to convey different emotions and different outcomes and different choices, or you could just stay quiet and just proceed with the next scene and see how that goes. So it's engaging, fairly engaging for a visual novel game. You're just clicking away, kind of mindlessly sometimes. But I felt very engaged while playing the demo, and it got its hooks in me. And I never spent $8 faster when I was done playing that demo. So talk about how that mechanic came to be and how you're trying to innovate in a very like flooded genre of visual novel games.
That's also thank you so much for bringing that up. You told me sell your game, and I've
Yeah,
forgotten to bring
I
up
did
one of
homework.
them.
I did research.
So thank you for that. Um, but that's also a very interesting story how that mechanic came to be. So essentially, what had happened is it was a couple of years ago when we were working on a completely different game, which was the follow-up to a game jam title we worked on. It was at that moment we were like, you know what? Let's try making a visual novel. And nobody in the team really knew much about visual novels. I was the most experienced within that genre. So I created a game design document where I simply went through all of the genres, all of the things that are normal terminology and such about the genre of visual novels, and also explained some of the mechanics and sort of gameplay elements that are normally, within visual novels. Like there's a lot of like stat raising visual novel games and such. Just the traditional mechanical aspects that are already sort of accepted within certain genres of visual novel. And within a later aspect of that, there was just a very small section where I then went, but we don't have to do it like that. There's also far more unorthodox ways in which we could do things. And then I went on to give like an example of something that is more out there, which is the system that you now know in Sacrifice for Sale, where you can choose to be silent and interact with key choices. It was just a small section that was sort of like an afterthought of, but we don't have to do that. We can do over crazy things. And after everybody read the document and we came to talk about what genre do we want to go into, everyone was like, well, that sounds actually kind of cool. And we never heard about that. So let's do that. Um, and then we went and did that. Uh, so, but I think the idea in and of itself is definitely based on a bunch of different games that did influence me, such as Negative Nancy is a big inspiration. I'm not sure if you've heard of the game. It's a game in which, very similar to ours, you can interact seamlessly with the story at any point during the dialogue.
Hmm.
It's a game where essentially you can remain silent or say no. And that's the only way
Oh,
you interact with the game, but you can
oh,
do it at any point to anything anyone ever says. And
interesting.
it breaks down that barrier between I'm reading a narrative and I'm interacting with the story. And that
Hmm.
is something that I love, like breaking down that barrier between I am making a choice, I'm influencing the story, and I am reading the story. And I think that was a big inspiration that led to this sort of conversational style of
Hmm.
choosing how to proceed with the game's narrative.
That's awesome. And speaking about the narrative, I want to talk about the setup and the premise is that you're a door-to-door vacuum salesman. And I kind of need to know where this is placed in time. Because when I first started playing it, I was like, who goes door to door and sells vacuums anywhere? Is this such
Um,
like an archaic way of like selling merchandise? And I'm wondering where exactly you seem like I don't want to date myself. I'm 40, 42 years old. You seem younger than I am. And the idea of like a door-to-door salesman is such like a an archaic idea. Where are we in time? And
so,
where did that come into play?
so as I mentioned, the original mechanic was also made for a completely different game. And
Right.
Sacrifice for Sale, as it is now, is essentially a game that was spawned from a variety of different failed games. It has gone through a lot of transformation and a lot of different drafts of stories. But I think that is one of the parts, the setting, that essentially had remained pretty much the same throughout all of the drafts. And I'm perhaps a little ashamed to say, but the game takes place in the year 1969 for no other reason other than we were amused by the number.
I was gonna say visual novels tend to lean towards the lewd and the sexy. And when I was like browsing the Steam page, I was like, is this a sexy game?
Well, there's no not safe for work content in the game, so I
Right.
can assure you in that sense.
Just busty
Um,
demonic women that
yeah,
are that have
yeah.
you captive.
The people demand it, we supply. That's all. Um, Also, if you're shocked by this, like, don't look at the number of achievements we have on Steam. It's the same number, 69 achievements.
And you know the audience well. That's also part of your job. You really have to know what the people want.
Well, it's it's a very specific kind of humor, and
It is, it is.
nobody can call you out for the writing being cringe if you say it was on purpose. So
This is
that's
true. Listen, I am a out loud proud gay man, and even I appreciate more than most people. Stephen would tell you if he were here, like how many lewd games are in my Steam library because I find them so amusing. And it's like it's the over the topness of it. I find it so comical, and I guess that's also why I'm drawn to a game like this because you know I like boobies for
it.
some reason. I just do.
I mean, everybody loves circles.
Yeah,
Just
so I can totally relate to that. But let's walk through some of the story beats. Now that we know we're set in 1969, that's incredible. You're selling your vacuum as a device which sucks. I'm sure that's not on purpose at all in any way. It's just what he happens to sell. Let's walk through again because my experience ended with I sold a vacuum, and that's
oh,
that's my that's my story. I went to some sexy lady's house who's it looks like something out of like Bride of Chucky. Her face is all stitched up, and she's got like, you know, extravagant makeup and pink hair. Um, and I sold her a vacuum, and I walked away as a proud salesman, eager and confident to make my next sale. So, um, what what I imagine I get into the door at some point in the actual full game. What can I expect going in to
so
Sacrifice
first
for
of all,
Sale?
congratulations on selling the vacuum. That's one of the
And I'm
harder
a horrible
NPC areas in the
salesman
game.
too.
Yeah, no,
And
like
I worked in
that's one
retail
of
for
the
like
rare.
15 years of my young life. So
Um, there, I'm going to say this because not a lot of people know it, and it's just a small little fun fact. But yes, most of the story happens after you get into the house, except
mm,
there's like one joke ending where it's just if you're so determined, there's like a small soft loop. But if you click through it like 10 times, the protagonist just goes, "Nah, screw this. I'm just going home. I'm just going to go home." You just get a joke ending. But yes, for the real game, you enter the house. And you quickly get knocked out. You're essentially getting overwhelmed. And at that point, you find yourself in captivity, essentially tied to a chair with no further way of interacting with the world other than with your silver tongue of trying to actually speak to those two ladies who have captured you. It is then where it's at that point where slowly but surely you gathering that, oh no, I am in danger. They've got some bad plans for me. Uh, I need to get out of here. And you start figuring out who they are, what their plans are. They're cultists, monsters, and you start laying some of the groundwork of, hey, maybe don't sacrifice me, And at that point, the whole branching paths comes into effect. There's a lot of different ways in which all of that can, actually play out. Maybe you play to their sense of morality, and like, no, killing me is bad. Or maybe you'll try something along the lines of, well, listen, you want to kill people. I'm a salesman. I know where all the old ladies live. Like, I think we can help each other out here. Um,
mm.
there's a lot of different ways in which you can try to convince them. And depending on how that goes, the rest of the story devolves in a different way. You can pitch the two cultists against one another, start some
Oh, I like
infighting.
this.
You can try to essentially, try and work as a double agent. Like I'm working on your side, but then really you just, do your own thing. You can just absolutely fail at everything and just die. That's of course also something that can happen. Um, there's a lot of different ways in which it can play out.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a very comedic game as well. I remember one of my favorite reviews on Steam is also saying like some of the decisions you can take shows the absolute lack of brain cells the main character has. It is amazing, and it is absolutely true. I very purposely wrote the main character to be to be
Smooth brained.
yes, a little smooth brain, perhaps not completely dumb, but to give him like a because you've always got heroes that are very capable. They know all the right decisions, all the
But
right
he's selling
good ideas about.
vacuums, also, Daniel. I mean,
Yes,
clearly
yes.
his life
There
isn't
was a
where he
point.
wants it to be at this stage.
There was a point in development where we're talking like maybe we should give him a different job, but we all sort of agreed that there's no you can't be a bigger loser than selling vacuums. No offense to anyone who does that in real life in 2024, but we could not think of anything that would pitch the player into more of an underdog situation as being a vacuum salesman. And this idea essentially continued that the player character is an underdog at almost every point in the story. There's some endings where the main character gets suspiciously close at becoming competent.
Mhm.
Um, but at that point, it's earned. I do think.
I think it's so clever how, being a salesman is the best setup for a game like this because this character, Donan's luck, going door to door, trying to sell vacuums, and now he's trying to convince two people like why his life has value and, he's making the best sales pitch of all, why they shouldn't kill
Yes.
him. So it's actually really smart and it's a really fun setup. Um, and I'm super eager to dive in. Um, to kind of like because I could go into a game like this is very much about the choices you make and how things play out. Were there any things that you thought were too crazy that were on the cutting room floor when you were writing this game out? Things that you wanted to put in with maybe let's not do that in this game. Like, what were your own personal limitations in crafting and writing this story and its outcomes and the various decisions that branch off?
Oh goodness.
If any, you could have
There's
been a
a.
total fucking sicko. And like,
I mean, I
all,
wish.
all
The
bets are
truth is,
off.
I don't think I've ever made a game where there isn't like on release date something where I look back and was, oh man, if I only had more time, I could have added like something more cheeky or something more funny or like just
Mm,
little Easter egg more. And there's always like if you had, there's always a reason to add more. There's always funny things that you only think about later. So there's definitely things that I wish I would have had additional time to add. Um, but from the cutting room floor, there's a couple of things that we thought at some point in development to cut due to reasons of reaction of playtesters. Um, some of it was there is one political joke in the game, and we
mhm.
had one of the playtesters react very poorly to it. Uh, and there was a lot of talk, oh, maybe we should take it out. Maybe that's too weird or something like that. Then we realized it's the only political joke we have, and it's not leaning in any direction really.
Mhm.
So we just decided to double down and make it an achievement if you actually see it.
Okay.
Um, Another thing that we're thinking of cutting out was something that seemed too flirtatious,
Mm.
something that was too suggestive to some of our readers. And in that case, also, we decided to leave it in, but only hide it even more behind, like, so to ensure that a player will only ever see this content if they truly and consistently continue to flirt, so that it's only something that the
I love it.
dedicated flirts will be able to see. Um, there's one last thing that we did end up cutting, which was one of the endings, the way in which the player actually. I'm trying to say this without spoiling it because it is generally one of the best endings. Um, the player character, the salesman, the vacuum salesman, manages to get his hands on uh, an item that gives him a certain amount of power. And when he uses it, it actually works. It works exactly as he expected. And he saves the day. He gets the girl. He gets out of the situation. It's a full on success. Everything is great. And there were multiple reasons why we didn't end up going with this. One of the reasons was it just made him seem too competent. It just didn't seem in character for him to for this to be a way of doing it. And so we switched it to something which it's very interesting because that ending in of itself was paradoxical. There was like a
Mm.
reason why even in universe it wouldn't work. So there is even a line in the final game that acknowledges that, where if you use the item, you go to use it and turn it on, it simply states, "No, it doesn't work. Why would it, dumbass?" And instead of succeeding in the way that the player might have thought to succeed, they still end up succeeding, but through sheer luck and shenanigans, which is much
Mm.
more on brand with the way in which the main character of this story tends to actually manage to get on in the story. So that's
Man,
an example of a variety of things that were considered to be cut or changed during development.
I love that. I also love the fact that you go to great lengths to hide fun things deep and deep into the dialogue and the choice system because it takes a certain level of dedication and insanity to like go down a very specific path to get somewhere. And the fact that you leave little nuggets like, all right, crazy, here's your reward for going all this way. Like you did it, I acknowledge you, and here's your treat. And it's the kind of thing I would do if I was a game dev. I'd have so much lunacy in so many corners of of a game I created, and I love that, and it makes a game like this fun. And on that note, I want to thank you for making games like this because when I sit down for a gaming session and I power on my PlayStation or my PC, the idea of sitting through like a 15-20 hour game like can be so daunting to me. Having a game that I can just sit down and like kind of like take my time with and reach an ending in a reasonable amount of time and feel like, oh, I want to go a second round and see how things play out. I find it so comforting. And this is why I like indie game dev so much in a game like this because it values my time. It doesn't ask for a lot of me. Just hey, it's like come for a quick walk around the block and enjoy the view. And it's gonna be nice and fun and you'll enjoy yourself. So I appreciate that a lot.
I'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah. Um, we're gonna pivot into rapid fire pretty soon, but I think a good segue into that is while you were writing this, Daniel, did you relate more with the salesman or the cultists? Who did you feel like resonated more with your personality, like as you were putting these characters and fleshing them out on paper?
I mean, in some ways, I feel like every character that a writer writes has, in some way, like an aspect of the writer present within
Mm.
them.
Oh, sure, of
Uh,
course, yeah.
that being told, there is a lot of situations where I've had some of the people who know me play the game for playtesting reasons or just for fun. And after playing a specific section where one of the character monologues or such, they've come back to me and said, "Oh yeah, that's very you. I see you within that monologue. I can see, I can just hear you saying these things." And that was a revelation to me because I didn't even
Right,
think of it that way when I wrote it.
right, right.
Um, I suppose that's a difficult question.
Mm.
That is a difficult question.
Because I'm sure writing. a certain character came easier than another. So it's a matter of which one kind of flowed more out of you organically compared to the others.
That is difficult. I think it would probably be the cat lady, Mia.
I love
I
it.
think she
Mia.
floats the smoothest. Yeah, that's her name. Like, yes, you have no idea. Like the when that character was
I
created,
literally can't wait to get off this call. I'm loving the conversation, but I'm like, I gotta see where this fucking game goes.
when the character was created, all of us in the team we were sleep deprived, and we were like, "What should we call this character?" And somebody was like, "Meow," and somehow this developed into Mia, and we were like, "Yeah, fuck it. That's the name of the
It's
character
like the
now. There
path
we
of
go."
least resistance. Yeah, we'll go with that. Next item done. um, that's funny. All right, so that's a good getting our feet wet with rapid fire. Um, so what is your gaming equivalent to comfort food? What is a game you often find yourself like, I like playing this, as a go-to, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Well, it depends in what sort of mood I am, but I think
Mhm.
generally speaking, it's probably a game such as Team Fortress 2.
Mm,
A game that is old, that I know very well. I know
yes.
how it works, and I can just jump in. I'm familiar with everything, and I can just get into that sort of trance-like state of just playing the game, and it's just comforting. Which
You know,
sounds weird from a visual novel developer, liking a shooter
right.
as a
It's like a total, well, I guess that's why. I mean, you enjoy playing games like that, but you create something a little bit different. So it kind of makes sense. And also, like, I liked you a lot in this conversation. Now I just like you even more because that's an amazing answer. That's one of my favorite games, and uh, I love it. Um, let's see. Oh, I like asking this of indie game developers. If you were given an opportunity to work on any existing IP in the gaming sphere, they said, "Hey, Daniel, make us a brand new sequel of this game, this property. Could be indie, could be a triple A. What would be like your dream scenario?" And blank check. You get a blank check to make anything, any genre, but you can pick the IP. What IP are you going with? Oh, I can't hear you anymore. You just went totally quiet. And we have 5 minutes. Oh my god. Oh, that's gonna be fun for editing later. Let me just make sure it's not me. I'm gonna play a video on my end. No, it's definitely not me because I can hear YouTube video playing in my ear.
Can you hear me now? There we go.
There it is.
This was really weird. For some reason, mid-conversation, Zoom decided to change my default audio to my headphones. Okay. Anyway, I mean, this would have been anyway. Let's actually just continue.
We're gonna cut
For
that. So, like, I just asked the question. Go.
I immediately know instinctively exactly what sort of game I would like to work on. It would probably be something narrative game based, such as I think Firewatch, to be honest, if you're familiar with the
Hmm.
game.
I am
It's
not
it's
familiar with
elite.
that. No.
It's a very good narrative game that is also very streamlined. It is a lot of 3D exploration, but it also does involve quite an interesting story. And it certainly influenced me quite a lot because I've seen some of the dev talks the developers gave on how they implemented some of the narrative construction, and it was fascinating, definitely.
Okay. Okay. I gotta check that game out too. Now I got that Negative Nancy. I got now. You're just selling me on games now. So you're just a constant salesman. I've spent $8 prior to this conversation. Now I'm gonna spend.
Christmas is coming up. Maybe
It
buy
is,
Sacrifice
yeah.
for Sale second time for
Yeah, but
friends.
if I buy all this shit for myself, then I'm not gonna have any money for anyone else.
Yeah, understandable.
Um, let's see. Ba, ba, ba. Are you a cannonball into the pool type of person, or do you dip your toe first?
I have not gone into a pool since my adult life, but I'm just going to go ahead and say cannonball.
um, since we mentioned sexiness and lewdness and 1969 and 69 achievements and all that,
So,
what would your safe word be?
uh, oh goodness. What would the safe word be?
Yeah, what's your safe
Uh,
word?
Frankenstein. I mean, I'm clearly in the monster sphere
Yeah,
at this point,
yeah,
so
yeah,
might as well stick on
yeah,
brand.
yeah. So this is a fun. I'm gonna ask you two more. We'll do a fun one, then a serious one. If Nintendo's lovable pink marshmallow Kirby absorbed you and stole your ability, what ability would he have when he spit you out?
Um, uh, oh goodness. What ability would um Kirby would gain the ability to create and foresee a wide array of possibilities of how a narrative or story could diverge in different paths, then realize Kirby will never be able to implement all of them or be able to tell all of those different paths to anyone, and then just
Mhm.
shorten it to a certain amount of length that will hopefully still be enjoyable for others to experience.
Okay, that's
It's not an ability that would be particularly useful in the competitive
no in
Smash
game,
community, I'll be
no. But I
honest.
feel like it's like a screen clearing kind of like ability. It's like a one and done thing. Like you have a really fun like special effect graphic to sort of like communicate that ability, but then it's one and done. It's that powerful. You can't use it more than once. Um, all right. I think what, I think we'll just end it there. That was a really great answer. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you about Sacrifice for Sale, out now on Steam. Everyone, go please and buy this amazing game. I bought it like a little while ago. I'm going to play it this weekend. And we'll get our full thoughts likely on our social medias on the Twitter and all that. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining us this week. Any parting words before we say goodbye?
Um, Thank you so much for having me, and be sure to also go to our website, teamariota.com, and follow our newsletter to stay up to date with any games we might release in the future.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. That was Sacrifice for Sale. This is Andy on DevDive, and I will see you all, you lovely people, next time. Thanks for listening.